Greetings and welcome to Distilled. So far, we have been talking about lists. Now, the lists that we have considered so far are just one-dimensional lists. That means, in order to access a particular element of that list, we just need a single index. So, for example, if we have the list, say 1, 2, 3, in order to access, let's say, the number 2, we just need one index. So we can just say L1 and we'll be able to get the element 2. However, if we want to, however, there are multiple dimensional arrays wherein there could be lists within lists. So for example, I could write something like this: L equals to 1, 2, 3, 4. So over here, we have a major list. Inside this list, we have stored two elements, element number 1 and element number 2. And both these elements are actually lists. So if I call, or if I try to access the first element in this list, so say L1, I would actually get the list 3 and 4, right? So in order to access a particular number in this list, I'll actually need two indices. The first index, which is this, would point out towards which list I'm actually trying to access. And the second element, the second index would point out towards what number or what element of the inside list am I trying to access. So if I am saying L1, that just accesses this entire thing. And let's say L10, that accesses the 0th element of L1. So that's this, right? So this kind of a list becomes a two-dimensional list or a two-dimensional array. Similarly, I could have a three-dimensional array, four-dimensional array, and so on and so forth, right? So let's try to perform some operations on these kinds of two-dimensional or three-dimensional arrays. Now remember, you can perform the same operations on these arrays as you did on the lists that we have dealt with so far. So let's start by creating a one-dimensional array, creating a two-dimensional array. So that would be the first thing, creating a 2D array, right? So when we'll be creating a 2D array, let's say I'm trying to create something of this kind. So let's say I'm trying to create this. So remember, I'll first have to create a list 1, 2. Then I'll have to append this list to our big list. And then again, I'll have to create a list 3, 4 and append this list to the big list, right? Now, if this follows some sort of a pattern, we can use for loops, right? So for instance, this follows a pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, and the inside lists have just two elements, right? So let's start by creating an inside list. So let's say for I in range 2. So that would, for I in range 1, 3. This would create the list 1, 3. This would access values 1 and 2, right? I can have values 1 and 2, right? So outside, let's just make a list L1, which is a blank list. And after that, we'll just say L1 dot append I, right? So this just creates the inside list 1, 2, right? Now we need this list 1, 2 to be appended into a big list L, right? So we'll just shift this entire thing and we'll start another for loop. I don't know what would be its range. Let's just let it be for now. And let's go ahead. And now over here, we'll just say L dot append L1. So I don't know what is the range of values that J can access right now, but inside we have created a list 1, 2, and that list 1, 2 we have appended in the list L. So let's say if we just allow a single iteration. So the list L would just be a list of 1, 2 within a big list. So let's just allow one iteration and see if that's happening. And if I'll just see the list L1, so it's a list L1 is 1, 2. And if I'll see the list L, that's a list 1, 2 within a big list, right? So if I access, let's say the 0th element of L1, it would give me 1. But if I access the 0th element of L, it would give me the list 1, 2, because L is this big list. And inside this big list, there is only one element, which is this list 1, 2. So that is what it has given us, right? Now we need to further include 3 and 4 here. So let's start another. This is just writing whatever comes to mind and then figuring out. So once again, for I in range 3, 5, and let's do the same thing. We'll make an empty list, append I to it, and after that, append the list to the big list, right? So if I just run this, okay, sorry, for I in range, yeah. And now if I see the list L has 1, 2, 3, and 4, yeah. And it has 2 elements. This is the first element. This is the second element. So if I say L1, it would access the second list 3, 4. All right. Now let's try to use patterns over here. So one thing that we see is that there are 2 elements in the list L, right? That we are trying to create. So definitely it has to go through 2 iterations. Yeah. So these 2 iterations I've given in this form. You could also use a while loop and anything for that matter. Yeah. Okay. Now it's the inside that we need to use some trick with. So let's just remove this part for now. Now, what this does is it creates a list 1, 3, 1, 2, and after that appends it to the list L, right? But then what happens when we go to the second iteration? Then this should actually change. This should go from 3 to 5, right? So in the first iteration, this went from 1 to 3, so 1, 3. In the second iteration, it must go from 3 to 5, 3, 5. So you're adding 2 to this, right? This is just a pattern that I have recognized. Yeah. So when J was 0, this was 1, 3. When J was 1, this became 3, 5. So what if I add this to the entire thing? Yeah. What if I add this? So when J is 1, this becomes 3 and this becomes 5. And let's try to do that and see if I get the same list. Yes, I've gotten the same list. So this is a pattern that I recognized. So this is some tricks with coding that you can do. You can analyze a few patterns here and there and try to generalize your code. let's say if I let this run for say 5 iterations, we'll still see all the 10 numbers here. So 1, 2 is the first list, 3, 4 is the second, 5, 6, third, 7th, 8th, 4th, and 9th, 10th is the fifth number, fifth element. Yeah, so you will be able to create lists, create 2D arrays in this way, right? If you want to, let's say, create an array with zeros, you can do that as well. You could just uh, go ahead and append 0, and these would all be 0, 0, 0, 0, and so on. Yeah. So you could do a lot of these things further on. You could use if here and there, but yes, this is how we deal with two-dimensional lists. One more thing that I often use is list comprehensions in this case for creating a 2D array. So let's try to use list comprehensions. So remember, whenever we used to do list comprehensions, you could go back to the list comprehension video and see how we exactly perform list comprehensions. Whenever we have for loops, right? We always used to say the big list L is something, I don't know what, for I in range, whatever. Yeah. So this something is whatever you write inside the for loop. Yes. Whatever you're appending to the for loop, and whatever you're appending to a list inside the for loop. That is what we used to do, right? So I'll just give a recap of how we used to do list comprehensions for a 1D list. So for example, if we had to make a list of say 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if we had to do this in the conventional form, we would say L equals to this, an empty list. Then we would say for I in range 1, 6, this accesses values 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, L dot append I. And that would give us the list L. To write this in the form of a list comprehension, we would just say L equals to whatever we would append. So that is I. And whatever we wrote here, we would just copy it down. So that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's all that we used to do for list comprehensions. So we would do the same thing here. I am just going to comment this thing out, and we are going to do the same thing here. So whatever we wrote inside the for loop, whatever we appended, basically, we'll just write here. So let's just copy this thing, and we'll paste this inside. Now, the only thing that has changed is that L1 is actually a list itself. So instead of writing L1 here, we'll write another list comprehension here. So we'll create the list L1 here. And how did we create this list L1? By writing this entire thing. So once again, we'll create the list L1 here. So I for I in range 1 plus 2j, comma 3 plus 2j. And outside we have for j in range. So this creates the inner list, and this creates the overall list. So it's the same thing. Just expand this entire thing. Yeah. So this is what we have. So once again, we just used the simple concept of list comprehension. What we did was we took this entire code, just like we do in list comprehension. Whatever we are appending, we wrote here. This is whatever we were appending, right? So we wrote it here. And after that, whatever was the range, we wrote it here, right? The only thing that changed was whatever we were appending was not just a number, it was rather an entire list. So this whatever we were writing here actually became another list. That is all that has changed, right? So you can do similar things. You can play around with list comprehensions as well. So I think this would be sufficient for today's lecture. I have also uploaded a self-assessment test. I really want you all to attempt this self-assessment test so that you are able to use list comprehensions to create the second list, 2D lists. You could access elements in the 2D lists. That gives you a great practice. So I really recommend you all to please take please take this self-assessment test before you watch my next video. All right. Thank you.